The Lions and the All Blacks, folks. 35 points for the Lions, 41 to the ABs. Who would have thought that this final non-test match of the tour would be closer than the actual first test? Not many. It was a reject side for the All Blacks. But man, they were behind for a long stretch in this game. Still managed to get the win, but it's one of those ones where it's a bit of a moral victory to the losers because 35 points, the bookies were saying for this one, but it was a whole lot closer than all that. The All Blacks playing experience was about as disrupted as my viewing experience because the broadcaster here, Sky, was having all kinds of issues. It was cycling on repeatedly when I got up to watch this game at 5. So very much delayed, apologies for that, but it is the broadcaster's fault. You know, usually when they have issues technically, they put a thing on the screen saying, "We're having technical issues beyond our control, please bear with us." Just cycling and cycling and cycling and cycling. So thanks, Sky New Zealand. You kind of suck at your job and you're expensive. But anyway, a lot of isolated carries, a lot of knock-ons, a lot of turnovers, a lot of running out of their own 22 and sometimes getting punished for it. Some inaccurate passing, but the Lions, man, you got to give them a heap of credit. Like I mentioned in the preview, their back row is some good players. Mahashe, Frankie Horn, these guys get on the board. Kewan Horn was looking sharp. They played some rugby. The Lions boys, give them a heap of credit in front of a pretty vocal crowd there in Joburg. But yeah, how do we go through this game? Let's start with the beginning, man. New Zealand trying to run it out of the 22 early. That's the order of the day. And then Noah Hotham, who's one of the kind of later call-ups. Did he do anything to put himself in the test match conversation? No, actually. I think a lot of guys probably put themselves out of the conversation with this game. Hotham's always been down the pecking order with Dave. He was only, as I said, a late call-up, but man, he kicked out on the full and threw an intercept pass early. He did score a try, but goodness me. Not great. Not great out on the full. The Lions with a bit of a gift, bit of territory. They used the width. It was great to see. They had an attacking line out. And then from an attacking scrum, after there'd been a kind of All Blacks turnover by Blackadder, who was one of the few guys to actually put his hand up, I think, and a knock-on, Lions scrum. And then Nico staying with the wee dummy, sells Rico down the river and goes over for the first try of the game for the Lions. So 7 points to 0, cracking start for them. And then Mahashe, who's had a great season for the Lions last season in the URC. As I mentioned, an absolute guy to watch. Boy, did he look it. Noah Hotham gave him the gift of all gifts from an All Blacks lineout. You could see it coming from so far away. The only guy who didn't see it was Noah Hotham. Hell of an intercept pass, a gift for Mahashe, but he's got the gas to go over. So 14 points to 0 after 6 minutes. What a start for the Lions. All Blacks guys are absolutely shell-shocked. They did respond pretty well, I think, though. They looked to keep playing. Sometimes I feel like the All Blacks just needed to, like, all right, let's just rein it in a little bit. Like we saw it in the test match, right? The All Blacks sometimes spun it, but then sometimes just reined it in a little bit. I guess you figure you're up against the 7th best team in the URC. Maybe you don't need to rein it in. Man, like this is one where they get a bit of pay. The Lions knock on the restart, which is not ideal. You're playing the All Blacks. You've just gone up 14 points. You need to catch the restart, but it's just a drop cold. All Blacks go to work. It's a bit scrappy. Like Mo'unga drops the ball. It comes out the back. It's not a knock on, but it's like scrappy play. It's kind of a good recovery from the likes of Tavatava Nawai. And then Narawa with a wee snipe from the base of the ruck goes clear. And then Hotham with the support line. 14 points to 7. But as I said, it was ambitious, but it was a wee bit scrappy from the ABs, but they all count the same. Tavatava Nawai had a nice turnover. He was another one of the guys you feel like putting his hand up. And then Sam Darry gave a really stupid soft penalty away, taking a guy too far from the breakdown. He's maybe one guy who put himself out of test selection, I think. If the fact that Tuipulotu got subbed means he's the more likely lock to go into the side to replace Josh Lord on the bench, one would imagine. So, yeah, soft one from Darry. The Lions had a shot at goal. Chris Smith, who was largely very good, man, pulling the strings for the Lions. He is genuinely a pretty consistent guy. Missed that one shot at goal from the penalty. Mo'unga kicked it dead. Kewen Horn had an out on the full, so there was a few errors, to be fair, from a lot of players. There was some pretty sweet interplay between Fehi Whenganofo on one wing and then Narawa linking up with him, the two wingers combining. It's always a nice thing. But then, like, right as they got to the goal line, the All Blacks knocking it on, kind of a missed chance. Another New Zealand attack, quick tap from a penalty, isolated ball carrier, turnover from the Lions. That man Cronje, like, for a winger, he's really good at the turnovers. If you've done your homework on him, you'd know not to get isolated near that man, but they get isolated just a bit too ambitious. Just ran it in just a little bit. No, turned over, so missed chance. A line break from our own half. Eventually does actually pay off. Maybe this is what I mean, like, maybe you just need to play ambitious. Just go balls to the wall and just do it, because Moonga from a mark, they just start running at the All Blacks. He gets the carry from the going on the tap, Bodie, and then you got Fehi Whenganofo. Tawatawa Nawai has the big line break, hands outright. Narawa finally goes over, and there's other guys having touches like Paddy Tupulotu and Bodie Barrett had touches, so 14 points to 12. That's one of the ones where it pays off, but I feel like there's more times where it doesn't pay off than it pays off in the first half. Like, the converted chances rate for the All Blacks was not great. Missed conversion, 14 points to 12. Another missed chance when the All Blacks go into the Lions 22, line-out's not straight. Next 22 entry, they give away a breakdown penalty for coming in at the side. I think that was Bodie. Like, mistakes galore. Credit to the Lions defenders, man, because they've been, like, the All Blacks have been throwing the kitchen sink at them, but they've been handling it pretty well. And then the Lions get their third try. And Peku, he gets it. Great finish in the corner. Nice pop pass over the top. It all started with an attack from Kewen Horn with the big line break. He kind of skinned Rico. So great play from the Lions. 21 points to 12. It's a really, really nice try, because they hadn't had any genuine attacks for a wee while. But when they finally got a chance, they absolutely took it, the Lions. So 21 points to 12. They are up, although the All Blacks did have, again, the kind of perfect reply. It was coast-to-coast stuff, very easy on the eyes. Great hands, fitting on all four, Blackadder to finish it off, but another missed conversion means it's 21 points to 17. It was quite close to a quick-fire double for the ABs. Beauden Barrett with a kind of one-handed take and then drops it onto his foot. So, like, magic that the ref or TMO initially thought it was, like, he hadn't controlled it, but he controlled it, dropped it onto his foot, but then there's a forward pass in the build-up anyway. So, a quick-fire double gets TMO'd. And then the Lions, right before half-time, win themselves a scrum penalty. And when they kick to halfway, they just throw the line and kick the thing out at half-time. So I guess they wanted to get some air in the lungs and go in with a rest. But usually the Lions, like the commentary team said on the South African broadcast, because I'd switched to a dodgy stream by this point because Sky wasn't working, yeah, they usually keep playing. But they went into the sheds with the lead. They'd had 38% of the possession, the Lions. They had 4 22 entries and scored 3 bloody tries. Whereas the All Blacks had 9 22 entries for 3. So, yeah, not clinical from the ABs, to put it mildly. The All Blacks had 12 offloads. Maybe that's too much. That had 9 clean breaks to 2. That had 400 plus run meters to 100. So the stats would tell you the All Blacks should have been winning that first half. But the error count was, as I said, just too high on the Lions with those turnovers were key. Second half starts, Lions win a bit of aerial ball. Mahasha on the left wing. Offload game, and then Cronje goes over. Goodness me, the Lions are in dreaming, surely. You're dreaming maybe this is the game we get the win. Maybe we finally, one of the midweek teams gets up for a win. You see it a lot of tours, right? Lions, British and Irish Lions team gets rolled midweek or something like that. Maybe. 28 points to 17, and then it goes 35-17 when the All Blacks scrum gets monstered. Like, they hold up the Lions as the Lions are going heavy on attack again. They get held up. Again, it's the All Blacks guilty of playing from their own 22, giving the Lions that kind of chance to have a bit of territory and have a crack at it. They get held up, but then it's a scrum, and the scrum just obliterates the AB's pack. Frankie Horn goes over from the back. 35-17. Like, you're genuinely a chance at 35-17. But for the Lions, that is the final scoring. And again, I guess a little bit of credit to the All Blacks. They did hit back pretty fast. Rico gets His first one, he gets 2 in this game. It's him combining with Bodie, to be fair. That's a bit of a Blues combination. Bodie puts him in the gap, and Rico, who was very sharp on attack, he puts the hammer down. It's a much needed try. They switched to Moonga for the goal kicking at this point because Bodie's not been doing that great. So 35 points to 24. And then the Rico intercept, I think it was the Creel pass, means it is looking a little bit less hairy from an All Blacks perspective. They did check it that there was no tackle off the ball affecting the game, but it was the ref said he was committed to the tackle, the All Blacks guy. So 35-31. And then it takes not quite 10 minutes, but Blackadder finally puts the All Blacks in the lead. It starts with a pop to Moonga from Blackadder, to be fair. He sets it up and he finishes it off. Tawhatava Nawai, Rico, all got touches on the ball. And then Blackadder finishes it off. So bang, bang, bang. All Blacks were in a bit of a hole, but 3 quick tries. And they have a narrow 1-point lead. Moonga's conversion was a bit of a stinker. So 1-point lead. Far from like game over, man. Like you're only a kick away from being in all kinds of hot water here. The Lions' maul defense held out the All Blacks for a bit. Then the All Blacks conceded another penalty at scrum time to give the Lions a bit of a free exit. But I think key is Ma'u comes on, the reserve tight head for his debut, and then Numia comes on, who was not even supposed to be in the team, but apparently Tuangafasi was sick. So, yeah, they bring on Numia, and then the All Blacks scrum really does get better. Plus Morgan gets a big line break. They can't quite finish it, but they end up with a scrum on like 75 minutes deep in the Lions territory. Bodie and Rico can't finish a try, but another big scrum. And finally we get Narawa when they got advantage with some really sweet footwork to evade like 3 or 4 Lions defenders and power over for a try. So 41-35. That's pretty much the game, isn't it? So hard work, man. Really hard work. 14-22 entries from the All Blacks boys. Managed 7 tries, whereas the Lions guys had 9-22 entries and managed their 5. So a little bit more efficient with the chances they had, man. It's kind of the reverse of what we saw in the test match, right? The Box in that game that they lost had more 22 entries than the All Blacks, but the All Blacks took the chances. So this was a kind of flip of that script. The All Blacks had 62% possession. They had 15 line breaks to 4. They had 38 defenders beaten to 20. So on another day, if they don't drop as much ball, or you got to give credit to the Lions, man. The Lions won 10 turnovers. If they don't get themselves isolated and turned over by the Lions guys, they probably score a lot more points. But you got to give credit to the Lions. Scramble D at times, like Hugh and Horn was good on defense. They had, as I said, good turnovers won, getting isolated carries and just gets right over the ball. Cronje won a couple of turnovers. So, yeah, man, good effort from the Lions guys. Delport had 14 tackles. Mahashe had 13 tackles. So, you know, big shifts from those guys. Cronje, as I said, a couple of turnovers won. Rico missed 5 tackles, but he also made 141 meters. Scored a couple of tries. So, bit of a... yeah, really offensively brilliant shift, but like I said, he got skinned a couple of times. Tawhatava Nawai, definitely one of the guys who put his hand up. 8 defenders beaten, 2 turnovers won, 2 line breaks, 137 meters. He's a bit of a beast. Blackadder, 16 carries for 70 meters, plus 2 turnovers won. He's also a bit of a beast, but yeah, some of the other guys, I don't think Bodie or Darry or Hotham or even like Moonga, I don't know that any of these guys played themselves into test contention. Somehow it looks like it's probably going to be Paddy Tupulotu and then Numia for sure, who'll be on the bench for the second test, but we'll see what happens when the team gets named. You guys let us know your thoughts. As I said, my viewing experience was a bit disrupted, so I couldn't really get the flow of the game because I watched 10 minutes on a dodgy stream and then the second half on Sky and then went back to watch 10 minutes on Sky and then they finally loaded up the whole game, so I watched the start. So I watched it in chunks. But that's the game. Anyway, hope you guys are all good. Take care of yourselves. Subscribe to the channel for more content. I forgot to hang the Lions jersey. Sorry, Lions. I should have, but as I said, the morning's been a bit disrupted with the broadcasting issues. Apologies for that. You guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.